With over 400 celebrity interviews and tons of pop culture nerdiness, Too Opinionated is a safe haven for your inner geek. Find us at meistercon.com or on YouTube under MeisterCon Pod. And please subscribe. It would really help us out. Thanks, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Too Opinionated. So excited today. I've got writer-director Dave Wascavage with me. So welcome, Dave.
Hey, how you doing, Michael? Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this one because, when I was in college, we started watching, back then it was Mystery Science Theater. So that's all they did was B movies. And a lot of those B movies that they did at that time, I had seen growing up at the theater. So that was always fun. And then later RIFFTRAX and stuff started, but that started kind of my love of that type of movie. So when your movies started coming out, and especially Suburban Sasquatch, my buddies and I just would get together, and that's what we do. We'd sit and watch the movie and then watch it again, but we commentate as the movie's going on, or quote. We love to quote some of the lines from the movie, and just had the best time. So when I got the note that you were interested in coming on the show, I was like, oh my gosh, yes.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you to hear. And you know, my history echoes yours almost entirely the same way, except that a lot of movies that were on MST3K, I had also seen on video or TV, especially ones from the 50s. Yep. And I will tell you, this is the God's honest truth. When I started watching MST3K in the early 90s, I remember sitting there thinking, they're making fun of these films, and I'm laughing. And I thought, if I ever made a film, which was a lifelong dream, and it was ever on MST3K, I would never be ashamed. I'd be so proud of it. So when they reached out to me to have Fungicide and Suburban Sasquatch like riffs, and they're making the deal, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm talking to Tom Thurlow and Mike, and
nope.
And they're like, okay, Dave, well, let's talk about the deal. I'm like, I'm like fangirling, I'm like screaming, like, you guys don't understand, I'm talking. They're like, we get it, Dave. Just like I'm like, But anyway, you're right. It's there's such a zeitgeist with these films, and you could take the most serious film and still find some type of humorous element or do quotes about it and enjoy it. Or you could take some of the most poorly made or ridiculous seeming films and still find the love of it. It's just a matter of, it's like all art, right? It's subjective. It's something that you see,
that's right.
A lot of it you interpret on your own.
Well, and yeah, so when in Mystery Science Theater, and that was the same way. It was the early 90s. I was in college. We would get, and at that time, we had cable, but it was only like 4 or 5 channels. Sci-Fi Network was one of those, and they would show those, and we would get together in one room. There'd be like 20 of us.
Yep.
Watching those things. And when they first started coming out, it was all the 50s and 60s movies that a lot of those I had seen growing up, maybe on TBS or something like that. But then eventually they started hitting the 80s movies.
Yeah.
Like I remember them showing A-Tor. I don't know if you remember A-Tor, but that was one we had seen at the theater, and that just made it even better because those movies we knew firsthand. So we always had a love for that. And then we just we've carried that on for the last 30 years. So we'll watch movies on our own, get together as kind of those guys from college and just have a blast. And I bet you Suburban Sasquatch, we've done that with 3 or 4 different times.
Oh, that's great. And I get emails all the time, or people reach out to me and they'll say, similar situation. We watch it together as a group. We laugh over it. Some people have been written me and saying, I hope you're not offended, but we make a drinking game to it, or we laugh about it. I'm like, look, I don't care if you throw a brick at the screen. I said, the fact that you're having fun with it, it doesn't offend me at all. I'm just so thrilled that people, like I said, they're entertained by it. They're having fun on any level. And the great thing too is, you watch a film and sometimes you're thinking, wow, did they intentionally do something that bad? Or how did they get it to a cult status? And as some people have said, these films were on the cult level. I never intended to be a cult status. It doesn't mean I threw some humor in there intentionally, and some stuff is silly, but when you're putting a film together, you never know how it's going to land. Sometimes it's
that's right.
The wall,
that's right.
So you never know where things end up. So it actually gets a life of its own. So I just step out of the way of it now, and whatever people see it, they see it, and it's just wonderful to talk about. I had this huge podcast I listened to where people dissected Tartarus for an hour and a half on not just the Greek mythology, but the Christian themology and the metaphor that might be done.
Love it.
It was really, really fascinating. And I'm sitting there thinking, boy, a few things you got right, a few things I wouldn't have said, but it's not that it's wrong. It's something you're seeing out of it. So it's always up to the interpreter.
I mean, I think that's really neat. And I think actually the first one of your movies I saw was probably Fungicide, was probably the first one, which was also a terrific movie to sit around with friends and kind of dissect. The scene with the mushroom breaking in through the sliding glass doors, that always cracks us up.
So here's a fun fact. I don't know if I put this in the audio commentary or whatnot, but that was me in the costume at that time.
Really?
So when you watch it and you see the mushroom ground beating people up, you notice Jackson's character isn't around. That's why later on, when the scene ends, he comes in, he's like, I was in the can, did I miss anything? It's a joke to say, like, well, that's why the character was around, because the actor.
Hilarious.
It's like putting in jokes in there because it's just so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fungicide was one of those weird, funny things. Like, we just didn't know what was going to happen with it. You just give it a try.
Yeah. I loved it. So let's start from the beginning. You know, when you were growing up, what made you want to get into filmmaking?
I've always had an active imagination, acted everything out, loved books and sci-fi. And then when I saw Star Wars, my mind was blown. I was like, this is so visually surreal. Everything was unknown and new. And I was very young at the time, maybe 7 or 8 years old. So it was just mind-blowing.
Yeah, I think we're the same age because I was 8 when Star Wars came out. So we're probably around that same age.
Yep, around the same age, yeah. But you're not as good looking as me. But I remember, I think we were leaving the theater and I thought to myself, I think I was establishing, I was like, you know what? If I had a dream, it would be to write a book. But if I could really, really honestly dream, it would be to make a movie. Because I thought I could take my imagination and translate and entertain people. Because I was always making jokes and skits for people and making people laugh and stuff. And I thought, maybe something would translate. I mean, my career didn't have me down my path, but that was a hobby. And it was, I think, in 2002, when I said to my wife, I said, you know what? I think I could do a full-length film. I think I could pull this thing off for a really cheap amount, and without knowing the business model, we'll risk it getting stolen. So let's do something stupid, lame idea. We'll just bring in friends and family, rapid shoot it. I could cut it, edit it in 6 months or so. I mean, everything's a learning process. So everything you go through and you evolve, and the project comes along. And like, I know Mary, like I wrote the script and she was listening. She's like, I don't think this is going to work. And one day she came home from work and I made the hand puppet for the mushroom. And she said, you know what? Until that moment, I didn't think it was going to work. So when I saw that puppet, I knew this was going to work because I really, really believed and fully committed to it. So Fungicide was really the experiment and a chance to see what happens. And then it was a matter of saying, okay, well, if I had money for one more film or the time for one more film, because you're working, you've got a life, you've got friends, So if I'm going to do one more film, it's got to be Bigfoot, and then one more after that would be zombies, and that's it. That would be my ultimate goal. But after every film and every effort, I had to keep upping my dreams. Then it was like, well, can I get this into a store? Can I get a magazine to review it? Well, I got into a store, a magazine, then I got a deal for each of them. Like everything kept perpetuating. So it was this wonderful way to have your dreams expand, and you wanted to keep increasing your goal and what you aspire to, but also the opportunity to explore all these other ideas and be creative and write more and more films. But unfortunately, time rolls on, and I haven't shot anything since 2012. So I've been sitting on these scripts waiting to shoot. I got Fungicide 2, Suburban Sasquatch 2 and 3 were written way back in 2004. So
I mean, at this point, you should be able to get some funding for those.
Well, the budget for Suburban Sasquatch 2 is probably $160, so that's a little bit tough to raise. No, just kidding. But people are always saying, like, go to Kickstarter and all stuff, and I don't want to give them money. I could put it together. It's simple enough. But honestly, it's time. You spend so much time when you shoot, and it's weather dependent, and you have to have the right people in the scheduling. And when you combine that with all the other things you do in life, it's tough to squeeze them together. And to be honest, I was going to shoot Fungicide 2 earlier this year, but I had to throw the script away because I'm looking at it and I'm like, boy, the script actually makes sense and it's good. So I'm like, nobody wants to see that. So I just chucked the whole thing. But when it comes out, it'll be good.
Yeah, nobody wants a serious, Fungicide. We want to have fun with it.
Well, and here's the thing. if you want to make people have fun intentionally, then it's got to be a comedy, and that's a highly valued skill that requires adequate timing, good skills. I ain't got none of that. So I'm just going down the path of what would I like to see as a viewer? Like, there are sometimes I want to bring a dramatic moment in, but sometimes I have to have something that just looks like it's scraping by as a viewer that I would laugh over, you know, like, and not laugh at how bad the film is. I'd still carry it along like a plot, but something that makes it still enjoyable on another level.
Well, yeah, because you want to, if you're watching something, it has to at least hold your attention long enough to get through the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be critical of other films, but there have been so many films the past 15, 20 years that I start watching, and 5 minutes in, I'll say to myself, I know who's going to die first. I don't care about these characters. I don't know why they're here. And I keep watching and I'm bored. And that's just to say, obviously, big budget films have a lot they have to meet, right? There's a financing criteria. They have to make a certain profit. The actors want things.
Right.
So I can understand it's a challenge to get the art forward. That's why I think in this indie level, you have a lot of freedom. You know, you could be as expressive as you want. The risk is, oh, sorry, it doesn't get distributed. No big deal. I mean, let's be honest. I'm not going to get hurt if a distributor doesn't buy Adventures of Haunted Hunter, or the deal suddenly ends and nobody cares anymore. It's not going to kill me. I don't mind.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's a good attitude to have with it. So Suburban Sasquatch coming out, or is out now on Blu-ray? How did that deal come about? I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah, and I hate that. I never do this, so I'm just going to kind of plug it. So there's the cover. So I had an agent who worked to get deals with me, great guy, and he's like, look, you know, Wild Eye releasing, they're interested in Suburban Sasquatch. They want to do it in the Blu-ray. They want to do it right, and we talked about it for a while. And this is a couple of years ago, maybe like 3 years ago. That's how long the process took to come forward. So we talked about remastering the film and upgrading it for Blu-ray. So I had to upgrade all my software and go through the process. And they were wonderful about it. You know, really, really helpful, flexible with getting it out and scheduling.
That's good.
So it was really more about the agent taking you to step forward to try and present, or them reaching out to the agent and then making a deal that was appropriate. I don't know if I could say this, but Fungicide is also getting a similar treatment.
That's awesome. I was hoping. Yeah. I was going to ask you if any of the other movies were.
Yeah. And this is where maybe my feeling comes out, because they're like, look, we're really happy with the product. This is before it came out. Like, can we do a deal for Fungicide? I'm like, I don't really want to. I feel like Fungicide's a little older. I don't know if I want to go to the Blu-ray. And they're like, well, what if we did this? I'm like, look, guys, it's not money or anything. I don't know. I guess I was kind of feeling like I want to release it with a double pack, like with a sequel. And finally, I think a friend said to me, like, look, what have you got to lose? Just spend a little bit of time, you get it out there, and more people get entertained by it. So sometimes it's not a matter of just like, I'll just jump on the deal. It's a matter of like, what does it mean to you? What does it have to come forward? But as far as Wild Eye and Visual Vengeance go, I mean, the artwork, and I'll show you this, the artwork they did for this, showing up there. The artwork is just absolutely amazing. And I actually hate to say
really good, like it's the artwork, like back in the days when you went to the video store, you might watch that movie just because of the artwork.
I hate to say this, but that's how I was. We would walk the video store. I'm like, oh my gosh, Dead Pit. This has got glowing eyes. It's got to be, no matter how good or bad it was, like it does attract you. And I'll tell you what, you look at that and how could you not get a movie like that? Like, I would seriously just buy it. I wouldn't even rent it. Like, I love that old school artwork, you know, and that's something we miss today, like album art cover, posters, DVDs, you know. I
think everybody misses the video stores.
That's why I love having a physical copy of things. I mean, streaming is great to introduce you, but I still buy copies of everything.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm the same way. I'm the same way with books. I don't want to read it on a pad or something like that. I want to hold it in my hands.
That tactile sense. I know. Yep. The only thing I'll say about books is I love the e-readers for traveling. So if I'll buy it electronically, and a lot of times if I'm like, this is one for a keepsake, I'll buy a hard copy cover, hard copy of it.
Yeah, much easier to take on the plane when you have it on a tablet.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So I got lots of questions about Sasquatch. So we got to get into it a little bit.
I'm ready.
All right. So I guess to start, when you decide, so you decide you're going to make this movie, what was your budget and how did you get the cast together?
I remember, so it started with the genesis of what did I, you had to be passionate, right? What did I really want to be passionate about making? It had to be a Bigfoot movie. And what was the advantage in 2003 when I made it was, or 2002 when I wrote it, and then 2003 when making it, is that at the time there was like 3 or 4 other Bigfoot movies out there. And it was him throwing rocks or him being sitting in the woods. It was never violent. And
no, he's always misunderstood.
Right. And then there was the Harry and the Hendersons from the 80s. And I'm like, we got to pull this back and bring it back to some mythology, something that's like Star Wars and it's operatic and huge. And it's just so beyond the scope of what we expect. And no one had done it before. And all the research I'd done and knowing it was a Native American mythology that was very central to certain parts of the country and digging into that. And I thought, there's a really good story here. So I basically took all of the mythos, right? He disappears, he's super strong. Sometimes he appears larger. And I just wanted to roll it together and do something that's never been done before. And to tie it with a story of a Native American character. And I didn't want it to be like a trophy piece where she's just in there to be Native American because it's different. I wanted her background and Sasquatch's background to have some kind of connection. So I wrote the script and I'm like, this is going to be a $20,000 movie and it's going to be 4 hours long. So I broke the script up into 3 films. And then I took the first one and then I just wrote it as if I had the super budget. And then I would start paring it down. I think, okay, well, I can't shoot this here, right? So where would I shoot it? Like, how would I cut the budget? And by this point, Fungicide had gotten a deal. So it was very easy to bring on people. It was just, instead of saying to people, oh, I'm an aspiring filmmaker, it's like, look, I've got one under my belt. You've
done one, yeah.
Yeah, so I was just flooded with people who wanted to be interested in doing the film. So I would have all these talent agencies calling me. And next thing I know, I'm on the phone with agents. And, I'd be interviewing these really pretty, really wonderful girls. And agents are calling me. They're like, well, I don't want her jumping through the woods. It could damage her nails. Or she's too pretty for the woods. Can you change this scene? And I'm like, I don't know who you think.
Bigfoot movie.
Yeah, it's a Bigfoot movie, and I'm sorry. If she doesn't want to be in it, and I had one girl crying on the phone. She's like, "This means so much to me. I really want to be in it." And I'm like, "Look, that's between you and your agent. I can't resolve that." But Sue Lynn Sanchez, who was able to read for the role, she nailed it. I mean, she was everything I wanted the character. Just phenomenal, and she was so eager to do it. So bringing her on was really easy, and Juan Fernandez actually is funny enough. I interviewed him for like a side bit. Like he was going to be on screen for just a few minutes and get killed. He's like, I'll do anything. And I'm like, all right, would you throw up? He's like, yeah, I'll do anything. We hit it off right away as friends. And I said, and I had him test out some scenes and I thought, man, this guy's much better than someone in the background. So I was going to play the role that he played. And I figured, you know what, I'll step out of the film, let him do it. And he nailed it. He brought so much gravitas to the role.
Yeah, he was really good.
Yeah, he's a wonderful guy too. And so no matter what we threw at him, he just kept jumping in, full feet, wanting to do everything. But it's like that, you just start getting more and more people involved. The only things is I look at the scene with the people in the woods, right? I was supposed to have like 15 more people show up, but people had other conflicts. So Suburban Sasquatch 2 has to have a bigger one in that sense. But at some point you just have people who just want to be involved and they're excited about the project. And I don't sell it to them in terms of I guarantee you what's going to happen. What I say is, look, no matter what, you're not going to get yelled at on the set. Everybody's serious, but we want to have a good time. We're going to do our best. If you make a mistake, it's a mistake. We laugh over things like that. We try and grow. For people who want to be professional, they'll have their time. But if we're all trying to do our best, we still are okay with making mistakes and handling things.
I think that's a great way to do it. Yeah, so it was a fun set to work on.
Oh, it was a blast. I mean, there were days where it was stressful to me because I'm trying to handle props and cast and coordination, and I don't really have any helpers to try and keep the budget down. And when I would look at the footage afterwards, I think, oh my God, this thing's a wreck. Like, how is this actually going to go together? But having gone through Fungicide, I'd say to myself, hey, in post-production, I know what I can fix. Like, what you can bring up to speed.
That's right.
So that put me at a lot of ease and made a lot more of the scenes a lot more relaxing. But people had a good time making it. So every time we would get something shot and people would feel, nobody was upset. People were very happy. They were just thrilled with the product. And then, of course, when you get to the point where you can premiere the trailer and people see their work for the first time, put the music and cut, it was a thrilling moment.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, were you Were you teaching yourself this stuff as you went along, or did you learn some of it before you started making movies?
Well, I think in '87, I bought a video camera and I was making 2-minute films. And I
Okay.
was just teaching myself the rudimentary basics. Right back then, you didn't have non-linear editing, so you had to figure it out in the camera. And then I started to learn how to take sounds, Foley sounds, and like a 2-second bit of a soundtrack and replicate it over and over to simulate music because I couldn't make music. And like it's this evolutionary process. And once I started to learn how to make CG titles, that's where I'm like, well, if I can make titles, then I don't have to have a handwritten title for film. That I think makes a big difference. So that was one of the big pushes for Fungicide was I could do digital titles, and then I can make a 3D mushroom, and then every day is like, wow, I can make an explosion, so I'll put that in a film. Like you just learn little bits at a time, and then you take that to the next level. For the next film, bigger budget, more people, more time to set up the camera. I'm going to focus on the lighting, like better props. I'm going to, instead of bringing a $2 cap gun, I'm going to get like an airsoft gun, or I'm going to get an actual model of a gun, or someone's real gun, held off to the side. Like you're going to try and improve everything you can. But there was no schooling or classing or anything I'd gone to. It was all just figuring it out from what I'd loved and what I'd seen in other films.
Yeah, that's pretty great. So if you make a sequel to one of these movies, are you going to try to, make it similar to the original, as far as effects and things, or will you upgrade it since it's been 20 years? Will you upgrade it? The effects have come a long way since then, or do you try to do it in that original style?
Well, so from the perspective of improvements, right? You can't get away from the digital improvements, right? You've got so much more capability, like to up-res the original for Blu-ray. Now I could bring a lot of cinematography capabilities to the film, so the colors and that perspective is going to get better. But for the sequels, I'm not going to be throwing anything huge at it. I mean, I think that there's a joy in doing what I can with a limited budget to make it look passable. And I don't want to go beyond that and make it look professional, because I think part of the joy comes from that low budget look.
Now, it does. That was kind of my point. It's like I would rather you did it, more low budget.
I mean, but there has to be a step up. Like my CG skills have improved, but I don't like using CG. It's not like I don't like watching in films, but to me, I really love old school actual splatter and stuff. Like I use CG a lot because I just couldn't figure out anything else or didn't have the time. So I'll still use it to that effect, but I really love using practical effects as much as I can. It has to feel the same. It has to feel like it was shot in 2004 or 5, in my opinion. So that's what I'm going to go for. Although widescreen in HD, but shot in
yeah. That's awesome. So okay, so I got some movie specific questions. So when the couple's in the car, why is the car going so slow?
So this is the car in the beginning, I guess you're saying?
At the beginning.
Yeah, that's because I was standing on the side bumper and filming, and I didn't want to be.
That's what I thought, but that's what I was curious about.
I didn't want to be tossed off the car when they put the brakes on, because you have limited time to shoot, and if I say, all right, I'm going to film you, and when I say stop, put on the brakes, are they going to apply them gently, or are they going to slam on the brakes? So I don't know, and I don't have time to set it up and say gently slow down. So I'm like, drive. I'm like, okay, stop. Whoa.
I think that's where we got hooked, was about the time that he gets his head smashed. We're like, oh yeah, we're in. We're sticking around for this one.
There's two funny things on that one. When I was editing the film, and when Bigfoot slams his fist on the hood, the actor in the costume was so short. I'm like, he doesn't look like an impressive Bigfoot. So I had to digitally scale him up, and the digital scale didn't turn out right. I'm like, it'll be quick enough, no one will notice. And the other piece is when I have him hit him on the head, I'm like, boy, I wish I could splurt something out. So I had to add some digital blood in there too, just to get it passable, just make it look different. Yeah. It's quick.
That's pretty funny. So what about you've got the scene with the fisherman, and he attacks the other guy, and he's like throwing his body parts back against him and stuff.
So we were going to the scene that day, and as it was written, Bigfoot was just supposed to knock me aside. I'm the fisherman, right? Who gets the arm pulled off. He was just supposed to rip my arm off and knock me aside. And then he was going to go over to the other fisherman, knock him, and the other fisherman was going to fall back, hit his head on a rock, and then fall in the water.
Yeah.
And when we were going there, the paper mache rock I had made got mice into it. So it got a hole in it and it fell apart. And then it started to rain. I'm like, crap, I have to rewrite the scene on the fly. So I said, Wes, when the arm hits you, just fall backwards into the river. So we just had to just rewrite it as we went there, figured it would work out.
That's one of my favorite scenes. He gets hit by the arm. I'm like, man, he threw that hard.
I love that. Like, I love limbs coming off, but that was pretty funny, you know. Yeah, just kind of
Yeah.
he wings it, hits him on the first shot.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So my next one, the police uniforms. Where did these come from?
Dude, that was like saving money. Those are like cheap tan shirts I got from a cheap clothing store. And then I took like brown felt or brown piece of cloth that I had, just glued them on. I'm like, looks passable to me. Look,
Yeah, I actually didn't think it looked that bad. Yeah, I've heard other people saying how bad it looked or whatever. I actually didn't think it looked that bad, but I did get a kick out of the fact that they always had to carry their guns.
Oh, yeah. I couldn't afford a holster. Plus, doesn't it look cool? You're carrying your gun around. That looks dangerous.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
If you do notice, so I think 2 films after that, I did Zombies by Design. And in that beginning, you had an Army general. And the Army general had a patch of all these badges. And that was like foam core with a color printer paper of badges glued on the top.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Kind of passable. So see, you get some skills that upskill better, but sewing is not one of my skill sets.
Yeah. That's pretty great. That's pretty great. But I actually kind of like the uniforms. I mean, they did look kind of security guardish to me, maybe instead of police officer. But I was okay with that. I just got a kick out of the fact that they were carrying around the guns, which admittedly none of us noticed until the second time we watched it, and somebody caught that they didn't have any holsters. So, it took us a couple of tries.
Yeah, fake holsters were like $10 a piece. I couldn't afford that. That blew the budget out of the water.
Well, they didn't have badges either, right?
Badges would throw it out of the water too. No, they didn't. Yeah, I think what happened was I got a sheriff's badge, but it was one of those kids like 7-pointed star badges. I'm like, that's just gonna I won't even put that in there. It just doesn't look right.
That's great. Okay, so what about we thought it was like, oh, he's going for something artistic here when you've got the women in the car eating the hot dogs and it keeps switching back to Bigfoot, eating the human parts. I was like, well, that's very artistic. I'm not sure what he's going for, but we like that part.
Thank you. Another of my favorite filmmakers, George Romero. And I loved Dawn of the Dead. And the fact that you've got zombies who are actually a metaphor for humans and consumerism just blew me away. I mean, I love the film, but on that level, it's a whole nother story. So when I was doing Sasquatch, I'm like, well, you know what? Really, Sasquatch he's seen as this horrible, evil thing, just eating people. But on the flip side, the humans in the film are destroying the environment, just have junk in their car. They're just eating. They're just
that's exactly what I told my buddies. I was like, this is what he's going for there. I'm gonna have to play him this clip just so I can prove I was right.
Well, you got it. You're absolutely right. That's what it was. And you notice because the editing flips between Bigfoot eating and the woman eating multiple times, because I want you to get the message that he's really no different. Just because he's got a lot of hair and he's taller, he's still a consumer. He's just still ravaging through things just like we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we love the chandelier in the back.
Well, it tied in with the consumerism. So that was Sarah. And I said to her, she was bringing her car over. I said, so what should I have in the car? I said, throw as much stuff in you have in there that makes it look like you are just out shopping and just buy stuff. So that's why I wanted to quick pan and cut to it just to show that it's consumerism. It's us. We're just gouging, ripping through things.
Consumerism like a chandelier in your trunk.
And a good looking chandelier too.
It's nice. Yeah, I had a feeling that was kind of what the message was there. It just that part of I was like, well, that's kind of, it was kind of artsy the way you did it and cut it back and forth. All joking aside, I actually liked that part of it. I mean, the hot dog part was kind of funny, but it made sense to me that there was a message behind it.
Yeah, and when you write, shoot, and edit it, you're wondering, am I too heavy-handed? And you think, are people even going to get it, or are people going to watch the film long enough to this point? Like, to me, it's very difficult to know where that line is, right? Your audience is going to vary in terms of what they want and what they don't want. And I don't want to bash a consumer who's consuming my film, and that wasn't the intention. It was to level set you with the character, because that does play in a sense to the sequels a little bit, like some of the way I was going to play the story out. But it's a challenge, because if the story is nothing but Bigfoot killing people, well, it's like candy. It gets boring after a while and there's nothing new. If you make it like a fine wine where there's so many elegant tastes and aromas and there's so much to pick apart and something you think about, well, then if the hot dog eating is a metaphor for us being similar to Bigfoot, what else am I missing that's right in front of me that's very similar?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you couldn't give her like some mustard on that hot dog?
Mustard was out of the budget. The mustard went into the vomit that Juan threw up later. That's exactly where it went.
That's what we said. We're like, come on, put some chili on that dog or something. No, that was honestly, that was one of my favorite scenes of the film.
Nice. That's good. That's good. I'm glad it came across.
Yeah. It's one of those movies that it's fun to kind of have fun with it, but it's still got a message that comes across with it, which I thought that's actually pretty well done. Like that took a little bit of talent, because it's one thing to just throw something together and throw it out there and it's kind of funny and people make fun of it and stuff, but to actually get it where you can do that, but you're also getting a point across, I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, thank you. I never made a film with the intention of just being like, well, who cares? Let's see what happens. There was always a thought or message behind everything, because you'll be quickly found out that, like, oh, you're just trying to snow us, call it a film, and get it out there. So when I watch Fungicide, even now, like, I'll say to myself, oh, look at that. It's interesting where the characters ended up. Like, it's good to see that there's an evolution of either a plot or a set of characters. And if they end up in a different place, then there's been a change or evolution. And well, all my films try and have that, because I feel like you're going along a journey too. You want to see what happens to them. It can't just be simply cause and effect or one event that follows another. You want to be able to bring forth something that the character comes out in a different way in the sense at the end than they were in the beginning. It was a complete journey. Right. Because if the film ends and nothing's happened, well, there's no point of having an end. It's the beginning again. If they change, well, then what's happened along the way, and that's what you want to be involved in.
Yeah, we enjoyed the blood from the arrow too. That was fun.
Oh,
that was a lot of blood.
And sometimes those arrows had to be completely CG. I think like the first time we were shooting, Sulin pulls the arrow back and pulls it, and the thing just flops to the ground. It's like, I can't get this to shoot. And like, I'll show you how. And I kept going. I'm like, just pull this thing back. I'll CG it later, because hopefully it'll be like a second. No one's going to notice. Oh yeah. Some of that CG blood, I look at, I'm like, oh, that's just so awful. But yeah, what are you going to do?
That's all right. I thought it was great. And the tomahawks that she's throwing with when he's holding the log. Love that.
Yeah, we get a kick out of that too. Whenever we watch that, we're like, what the heck happened to those tomahawks?
So if you make a sequel, will we see some of these actors return?
I can't tell you that. I'm sorry, I can't
blink twice.
All I can say is that the sequel will take place in a future, not like the year 2500. We're in space. It will take place in an appropriate time frame from where we left the events of the last film. And
will there be more than one Sasquatch? Will it be Sasquatch?
I would rather not talk about that. The story has to evolve, but I will say that there is enough in the first one that you should wonder about what something was meant or why there were parallels that should be explained in the second and third films.
Oh, there's a third out there too.
Yeah, well, if something happens to me, the script will be around, someone else can film it. Or if someone wants to buy it, hello, Lucas Spielberg, seven figures, and it's yours.
Yeah, let's do a trilogy.
But yeah, you know, it was funny because when I wrote the first one, I remember thinking, you know, I have to write these because I know if I ever come back to this 20 years from now, it's going to be written with a different mindset. We all change, right? And I don't want to lose what I had in terms of the idea and the zeitgeist from the first one. I want to keep that.
Yeah, I think there's so much that you could do with this movie, with all your movies. I mean, they would lend themselves, like you could totally turn it into like a children's book series.
Well, I do have a coloring book I made for Sasquatch.
Yeah,
I sell it on my website. Like it's totally bad like the movies, but yes, you're right. You could do a lot with this. Like, in fact, it used to be a joke on my website. I'll sell like statues of Bigfoot, like the comic book, like t-shirts. It was never intention to be like, I can make money. It was like, I got this dumb film and now you've got dumb products to promote them. It was, to me, it was always like Spaceballs, the t-shirts, Spaceballs, the toilet paper. It was just like, look, I can make this stuff. It's just so funny. And the fact that people buy it and they'll laugh at it, or someone will write me, say, your statue broke after I got it. I'll say, I'll just replace it. I said, no, it's perfect for a Trouble Moon Films production. And it's so cheap. I love it. Like I feel like there's a whole world there of just being able to celebrate and enjoy the odd, the broken, the offset.
I could totally see you going out and getting a ton of artists doing representations, you know, of their interpretation of the Sasquatch. I could totally see that. You do a whole book of it.
I've had people send me pictures they hand draw, or people watching the film, or people watch the film together, and you can see there's, you know, a lot of people as a group watching the movies and enjoying them together. I mean, there's a whole life around it, which is kind of funny. You know, like the first 2 years there wasn't a lot out there, but it's everywhere now, which is really wonderful. I just love the fact that it gets such an audience, and global too. Who would have thought? But yeah, no, I can't really talk about the sequels too much, so I don't want to let anything go, but they've been boiling and simmering for a long time. And
well, that just means that if it comes to fruition, you got to come back so we can actually talk about it.
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Have you thought about, like, we're good friends with a big part of the cast from that 80s movie, The Monster Squad, right? Yeah. So, you know, came out in like the mid 80s, but they travel around, like they're doing their 35th year anniversary of it, and they just travel around the country doing little signings and they'll watch the movie, you know, and then sign stuff and do a little Q&A with the audience. I mean, you could totally do that.
Yeah, I mean, the first few years we'd have the films out, we would actually hold small events, and they would be paid promotion events where people come, they pay to see the film, we sign or we sell things. But the whole goal of it was we would take all the money and we would donate to charities. So it would be wonderful because we're helping out like St. Jude's or all these other charities. And I don't care about making money from any of that stuff. I don't care about that. But it takes time to set all that up. And you know, you got to figure, what am I going to do? Am I going to promote something or am I going to film? Like, if I had the time, I'd rather film something than do the promotions. But we've been to premiering Tartarus in Baltimore for a science fiction convention. We went to Maryland to premiere Infinity's Lock. Like, we get invited to those places, and I'm always up front with the cast. And like, I'm not asking you to go to promote it. I'm saying, I'll pay for the hotel. I'll buy drinks and dinner. We could just have laughing for the weekend. If you guys want to come, great. It's never any pressure. I don't want to put pressure on people. I just want people to have a good time, you know, enjoy themselves.
No, I think that's
right. If I lose my job, I can always do that and run the country.
I think that's a great way to do it. So
if people invite, like, if people were to say, you know, do you want to come out here? You know, and we're always up for something like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I know if it was me, I'd be like, what time do you want me there? I'll be there. Because why not? I mean, that'd be the fun part, actually getting to interact with fans and people that have enjoyed it.
That's what I used to do. I used to go to film festivals and shows, like video game shows or conventions, and I'd sell the movie. And inevitably, you'd have people that I'd never heard of. They come up and be like, I've watched your movies. I love your movies. I'm like, I don't know who you are, dude. I'm like you act like you know me, which is great. But I'm like, you have to understand, I'm just Dave. But you get involved in so many conversations. And some people, they can't even talk. They're literally starstruck They're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, you're Dave. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I'm literally just Dave. So
Just Dave.
I will talk ceaselessly about it. So I'm happy to engage everybody. But
yeah,
you know, it's tough. Like if you go to a show, you can't write, you can't edit. You know,
that's right. That's the George Martin conundrum. You know, where he got to the point where he was doing so many other things, he hadn't been able to finish his books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he says he'll never be able to get to some of them, right? Because you get so, and you don't want to feel like you're pushing away fans. You don't want to feel like you're not giving people what they want. Like
right.
I would love to make people happy, do things. Like I've actually gone to Bigfoot festivals, and they're like, oh my God, come down, have a table, give a talk. I'm like, next thing you know, it's canceled because of COVID or something. Like you want to be able to do things, right? Try and find a balance.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's a balance. Yeah. So what do you get if I go and I buy the Blu-ray? What comes with it? What's because I know it's got some extras with it. What comes with the Blu-ray?
I can't even list all the extras. So besides the gorgeous cover art, and my eyes are bad, but I think they've included the RIFFTRAX as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we also have they did a great job too.
Oh, it's hilarious. That RIFFTRAX is hilarious.
Yeah, you know what? I actually was thinking of writing to them and saying, because I know they do live events, and I feel like saying, if you guys do one of my films, a live event, we will drive down to be there in the theater, and you can throw eggs at us.
Yeah.
But so they've included the RIFFTRAX. There's a new audio commentary. There's audio commentary by a blogger. They've got all the behind the scenes footage that we had shot, special effects, and really, really bad interviews. I mean, it really is packed. I got to admit, it's phenomenal. I even bought a whole bunch of copies.
Does it have bloopers?
Oh yeah. It's got the bloopers. Yeah. You got to have the bloopers. I mean, the whole film's a blooper.
Everybody loves bloopers.
That's why I wanted to keep them separate, because on Fungicide they ran during the credits. But I think for Suburban Sasquatch there were so many good bloopers. I forgot I had to have them separate, like a whole separate section of outtakes.
Yeah, that's terrific. And you got, if I remember right, I mean, Sasquatch came out, it was just a couple years after Fungicide, right?
Yeah, it was a year and a half. So Fungicide was September 2002, and then Bigfoot was 2004.
I mean, that's quick.
Yeah, it's a lot of time. And well, it's quick putting together, but it's a lot of time to do the film. So a lot of time you're overlapping work. I was laid off for 2002, so I was able to put a lot of time into Fungicide, and that made me better to be able to edit Suburban Sasquatch and shoot it. So once I got back to work, I was a little bit more rapid with being able to get it done, even though it was a more complex film.
What's your career? What's your day job?
You're not going to believe this, but it's actually a business systems analyst. So I do a lot of computer technology translation between business.
I believe that.
Yeah, it's completely opposite side of the brain, right? I come home and I do this stuff for fun, and then in the real world, it's all computers, technology.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I could see that, because like if you spend your day working that one side of your brain, wouldn't you want to do something the opposite in your spare time? I would.
Yeah, I've always had that ability to switch between the two, which kind of crosses lanes sometimes. So you need the technology when you're editing the film, but you also need some humor when you're working with very complex projects and helping the business to understand something complex and making them relax with a joke or running a conference. I think I went to London for a few years ago on a business trip, and in order to mollify the business and help them understand a really complex project for 2 weeks, I was cracking jokes left and right to put them at ease, and anything you can to help, the company move forward. You got to keep that in mind. So having the humorous background helped a lot. Yeah,
that's pretty great. How have you avoided, like, there's been other Bigfoot movies out there over the years. How have you not had somebody call and be like, we want you to make just a cameo in our movie?
I don't know. I'm just, my email.
Because you'd be the first call I'd make if I was making a Bigfoot movie. I was like, I just want you to appear in the movie, because as fans, that's the type of stuff we pick out. It's a little Easter egg.
Yeah, I would think it would be a great idea. I think it was two things that happened. I think the film did not get a lot of traction before 2010, and then I think around 2010, 2011, a company made a Bigfoot film, and they literally stole several scenes from this movie.
I could see it. Yep.
And I had actors call me saying, "Let's sue them, this, that, and the other." And I think once you started getting the traction after that, I think a lot of other people would make Bigfoot films. And I would assume that a lot of people said, well, if we're going to make a Bigfoot film, we want to make it wholly our own property. We don't want to reference something else, bring it back in. I did have a filmmaker who wanted to work the character in with one of their movies, and we make it to a project. I just decided it wasn't what I wanted for the character. I have my own plans for the future, but yeah, I mean, I would love the cameo in some way. That would be hilarious.
Oh, I think it would be. I would love that. Like, I think the latest one I saw was the man that killed Bigfoot or killed Hitler and then Bigfoot or whatever. Well, it was good. I mean, it was pretty cheesy and it was good, but that would have been hilarious if you were in like playing a store clerk or something in there, just have you in there as a cameo. I would love that.
They think my price is too high to bring on set, I guess. Cheap bottle of red wine's fine with me.
I was going to say, I'm guessing it's not that high.
Yeah, red wine. I mean, the tolls, I guess. I don't know. Bag of Cheez-Its, whatever.
Because I've always said that. Hey, if you want me in for a cameo, just call. I'll show up. You don't have to pay me. I'll just show up. Be the cameo. Now, if you want something more than that, that's on you. Because anything more than a cameo, that's probably a mistake. Well, Dave, thank you so much. This is it's been a real honor. I love your films. I love the fact that you love your films, that you get so much enjoyment out of making them and that you're so accessible about them. I think that's just terrific.
Oh, thank you. And I do have to say one thing. I mentioned this, but in shooting all these films, 95% of the takes that were ruined due to noise or sound was because of me laughing behind the camera. Because especially Fungicide, I laughed at everything. Everybody was able to hold their lines. I would mess lines up and I would just laugh on camera so much. I'd bump the camera from laughing, and it just keeps happening. It's because I'm so excited to do this. I'm so happy, and it's so great seeing people try that it's like a laughter of joy. I'm never laughing at people because I don't think they're doing good. I'm laughing because it's a dream come true, and how can you not have a great time? And now I'm doing interviews, and it's on Blu-ray, and people are enjoying it. Like, that's amazing. So cool.
Yeah, I mean, what a life these films have had. I mean, it's been 20 years. They're still going.
Yeah, and I love when people ask me, like, well, what did you mean? Like, you were asking, what did you mean by this scene? Or I noticed Bigfoot has an appendage, and like, yeah, like, here's the story behind that. Like there's so much that's cool that you can talk about with them. And it was never done to be like, I'm going to make a dumb movie. It was, I'm going to try the best I can with a limited budget, time, and skills. Let's see what happens. Go. Yeah.
No, I loved it. I forgot about the scene at the beginning with the car where the like the bones and arms and legs and everything just thrown up in the air.
It's like, you know what? This will probably look horrific. Let's throw it up in the air. Like, oh yeah. And then when I'm editing the film, I'm like, oh, it's terrible. Well, I'll just throw it in and see what happens.
Yeah. No, it was great. I'm glad you left it in. That was pretty great. Because it's that first, 10, 15, 20 minutes that really grabs you. And we were like, oh yeah, this is going to be like an annual thing. We're going to be getting together and watching.
That was my rule with the movie is if I don't grab you in 5 minutes, then you're out. And whenever I watched horror films, if nobody got killed in like 15 minutes, I'd be bored of that. So I wanted to come right in there hard and fast, show you who you were dealing with right away, and that he wasn't playing around. And once you're done with that shock, then we step back and say, here's the characters that are going to support how we move forward. And then you don't know where he is. Like, I really wanted to hit us hard and fast.
Yeah, I think that's smart because you're right. Especially, I think with horror movies, especially, if it doesn't grab you pretty quick, you get bored.
Yeah. And another thing that a lot of horror films suffer from is if I don't care about the character, then I'm really not going to be interested. So the two victims in the front, they're not likable enough to feel innocent. We know because they have very little dialogue, they get in and out quickly. The main focus right there is on who this Sasquatch is. We see enough of him to know that he's not to be messed with. Now the story starts. So it's like our prologue in order to get us rolling.
Yeah, I love that. So a couple quick things, Dave, before we wrap up. We touched on a few things, but I mean, what's the immediate future hold? Anything that you're working on that we can kind of keep an eye out for?
Yeah, I mean, so Fungicide 2 is written. Suburban Sasquatch 2 and 3 are written. They really are just waiting for the right time and scheduling to get them shot. So they'll be next. And then I have about 3 more scripts after that I'd love to shoot, but I'm on my own time frame, so they may not get shot for 10 years or something. Like I really am very relaxed about it.
Are they the same genre type of films?
Yeah, I love the sci-fi horrific,
Yeah, me too.
scary kind of thing. It's always been something of my joy. They are not sci-fi. I mean, two of them are complete horror films, but they're not of the Suburban Sasquatch Fungicide. They're wholly unique in their own, but they're ideas I've had for like 20 years that are just, all right, I'm just going to get this thing shot.
I think you've gotten a reputation at this point. You could probably get some big name cameos for these movies.
You know why I don't want that? I actually have people who write to me all the time. I'll come out, I'll be in your film, and then their rates are good, $300 to $600, $1,000. It's not that I don't mind spending the money. It's just that I feel like I'm drawing attention to the fact that you are here as part of the film, and people see that. And I don't like the thought that it's going to increase sales because of that. And that may be short-sighted, but I just like making my little film with my way, and I don't want to try and say, look at this really cool actor who's in here for a brief amount of time just to increase sales. I mean, I've had distributors that said, look, you don't have any nudity, so I can't distribute. Throw some boobs in there. And I'll be like, I'm sorry, I'm not doing it unless it's part of the script. Unless it's part of the film or
right.
I'm not going to do it because I don't care about the money. I just care about making something that's entertaining in my eyes. And that's what
I love it. I love that. I think that's a terrific mindset. That's a great way. It's very rare that you run into somebody that's actually like that or thinks that way.
Yeah, well, I have to pay the films back, dude. It cost $150 to make, so I've made $140 so far. So it's a loss. So maybe I will have to hire somebody.
So last thing, where can we on social media find you? Find Sasquatch, all the movies. What's the social media handles that you're using?
So honestly, I rarely go onto social media. You would have to go to troubledmoonfilms.com.
Okay.
Really, it was my blog and store. I have to update the website, the blog portion. The plugin seems to have disappeared. So right now it's just the lame store, but that's primarily where I go. But I have my email address, always posting the films, dave@troubledmoonfilms.com. And I always encourage people just to write or chat. I mean, I never ignore an email. And if you don't get a response, it's because somehow it got lost in spam, but I write back to everybody. And that's pretty
awesome.
much all I do for social. But you're right. I do it once the new films start coming out. I have to up that social game to get the word out. I've never been one for that. I just like making it and saying to friends and family, "Oh, here's another one."
Well, you got to get a guy. You got to get a social media guy.
Yeah, but they charge me money. I can't afford that. What they charge, like $6? I can't afford that.
Well, you know what I did? My son handles all of ours. He
Really?
does the editing. He does all the marketing. He does all of it. So
will he work for peanuts? I mean, literally peanuts?
Yeah, basically that's what he works for now.
He works for dad. He doesn't want to get punished.
Yeah. Well, he's a grown man now. I say like he's a kid. He's 22 years old. So I think he feels sorry for me. He's just helping me out.
Or he admires you and he thinks you're doing a great job. So you keep it up.
That's what we'll go with. I always say he's got the hard job. I'm just on here I'm just a talking head. He's got the real job, the work.
It's not hard to him. It's coming to him second nature. He's got it down.
Yeah, with these younger kids, that's what they do. The technical stuff.
They grew up with it. Yeah. That's why I was saying, for me to be able to do digital titles, it sounds silly nowadays, but in 2002, I'm like, wow, I can make the word fungicide in green appear on a VHS tape. That's like magic. I was like, wow. Now it's like,
I forgot like the stuff you did with the trees. Where you had the words on the trees.
Oh yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's pretty good tech 20 years ago.
And to me, when I did it, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did it. Like little old me, who knows nothing about this stuff. So you're right. Nowadays you look at it, it's like, well, it's not that impressive, but it's different, right? It gets your attention. Yeah. And it's like, that's pretty cool for them.
Yeah, I loved it.
I'll lower the quality for the sequel.
Yeah, you don't want to overdo it.
Right.
All right, Dave, hold on one second. All right, so that was the incredible Dave Wascavage. Oh my gosh. If you haven't seen Suburban Sasquatch, Fungicide, Zombies by Design, Tartarus, you are missing out. Some of the best cult classic movies ever. I was so excited to get a chance to speak with Dave. These movies are just fabulous in a million different ways. So I hope I gave you a little bit of taste of that. And if you're a fan of Dave's, then I'm sure I did. But hopefully, if you're not a fan, I've whet your appetite enough that you'll go and check these out. Suburban Sasquatch out on Blu-ray. So definitely get yourself a copy. It's worth your time, and it's got the RIFFTRAX version, which is just hilarious. Those guys do such a great job. Yeah, that was so much fun. And so we were talking off camera, and Dave offered to, find me a spot if they do a sequel. And I was like, well, let me know when. And if you need a guy to die in the background, I'm your guy. I'll be there. So we'll keep an eye out for that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in again this week. We definitely don't take that for granted. We appreciate that so much. You can help us on our YouTube channel, MeisterCon Pod. We're trying to get those subscriber numbers up because we take those and it helps us to get more great guests to come to the show. I wish it wasn't like that, but that's just the way things work. You got to have the audience. And we've been so lucky so far. We've got so many of you, but we're still working to grow those video numbers. So if you haven't done so yet, you can help us out. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, MeisterCon Pod. It's free and it'll give you access. Today, we released episode number 444. I can't believe that. We do 3 to 5 episodes a week. So we've been doing this now for 3.5 years. And that numbers start to add up. And there's a ton of great interviews on there. If you like independent filmmakers or smaller budget filmmakers, we've got those. If you like big stars, or if you have a favorite show, we've had people from that show on. I guarantee it. It's whatever you like in the entertainment world. I guarantee we've interviewed somebody from that. So check that out. You'll find some that you like. I know you will. You can find all of those episodes, audio and video, on our website, meistercon.com. And check that out. If we're doing anything in studio, like we did a live interview with the cast from Monster Squad this past weekend, that'll be on the website. If we're going on location, if we're going to a convention, if I'm working the background in Suburban Sasquatch 2, the quickening, whatever he decides to name it, that'll be on the website, meistercon.com. So definitely check that out. Thank you guys so much. Until next time. Bye, everybody.